Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Aaron the Pedantic, and today is Valentine's Day. I actually planned on doing this video much earlier, but Valentine's Day. So things to do, right? We actually have something really cool that we did, and it's going to go up on Chelsea's channel as soon as she's done with editing. So we'll see how that goes. It's probably not for most people. It's going to be not related to tabletops that much, but we painted Gemdall basically, and we're talking about stuff. So yeah. As for what this video is, first off, I come to you from a land of frozen lakes and rivers. Fucking cold front. It's ruined everything. Actually, it hasn't been that bad for me because I had boots in the closet that are slip resistant, which means that unlike most of these poor schlubs who are breaking their bones trying to get to their cars, I can just walk right over there. But you don't care about that. So what do you care about? Well, this video is about Critical Role. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you would know that sometimes I occasionally get into little tiffs, I suppose, with fans of Critical Role. They are typically very opinionated and extremely loyal to the players of the game, to the critter community, hashtag critter. Yes, it is. It is a hashtag. That is actually, it might be critters, but it's very. It's a thing. It's a thing. They really are all about banding together, and it is a community in the sense that, I often say that I'm not a fan of the fact that D&D has become a community on various spaces like Twitter or Facebook to a degree, but lesser degree. Obviously it has been a community in local game stores and in conventions, you could say. But I haven't been a fan of the fact that it's been a big social media thing just because of the fact that people tend to police so heavily. I can give you a personal instance. Not really. This one isn't related to Critical Role. This didn't happen because of the critters. This happened due to another group. But basically the most vicious online harassment I've ever received was kind of because of this kind of community thing that happens. Now that one was an adjacent one to the critters, not exactly the critters themselves. But let's discuss what exactly are the critters. So, to me, the Critical Role fandom has probably about 5 levels, maybe 4. I might revise as we go. We'll say 5. So, Critical Role obviously is a streamed game show where they play D&D and they are voice actors and they really dramatize it up. They make it very entertaining for a lot of people to watch. And they are the biggest show that I know of. I would say it's possible that Harmon Quest, which I also haven't watched, but I imagine Harmon Quest might actually be ahead of them, just because of the fact that they actually do a lot of heavy editing and animating, from what I understand. I'm not really terribly interested in that kind of stuff, but they are, from what I understand, also big shit, and that comes from the guy Dan Harmon. So that's a big deal. And then maybe Acquisitions Incorporated, but mainstream D&D like bullshit. So I would say that Critical Role is probably one of the biggest influences in the 5th edition hobby, we'll say. Now, I would say that the first level of Critical Role fandom is probably just appreciating the show, perhaps, appreciating the characters. Now, this is probably, I would say that I fall into this level. So this is introductory level mostly. So, it's not somebody that's like, okay, I'm going to watch it and then see how it goes. This is probably somebody who watched it and they're like, oh, I really, this is pretty cool. I'm kind of interested to see where this goes. I really like how their chemistry is together. They're entertaining to listen to. And maybe there's something about the way that they play that I might be able to learn from. And there are entire videos that have been made. XP to level 3 made some, and there's several others that basically they try and take examples of what Matt Mercer did, or I'm trying to think of their names. Travis Willingham, or why do I know their names? Because I'm an anime nerd. So it just comes with the territory. I knew who they were before they did this thing. I had that moment where I was like, oh my God, that's Lust. That's the voice of Lust on there from Full Metal Alchemist. Anyway. So yeah, like I had a reason to be a fan of the voice actors before I knew about Critical Role. So the Critical Role, this first level, you appreciate what they've got. You're probably going to listen to some of it and see how it goes, and that's about it. That's where I stopped. I stopped at that point. Now, I say that. Now, you could maybe watch a few episodes and probably be in this category. For me, I didn't watch. I say if you watch, there's something kind of weird going on. It's probably prejudicial. Well, one of the things that I wanted to preface this with that I failed to, and I'm sorry, but this is kind of like a vlog thing, so I'm not really doing a whole lot of, I would say, planning or editing or anything like that. I think it's important to just have these kind of stream of consciousness kind of videos. But anyway, so the thing about that is I listen to, and I don't watch, because watching... Why would I just maintain eye contact on people playing a board game? Unless I'm trying to see exactly how the board game works, but you don't really need to watch to see how D&D works. You just have to listen. So I listened to probably about 70 episodes. I know that's like, because this is like 4 to 5 hour episodes. But if we want to be perfectly honest with ourselves, what this really entails is I played video games while I had this in my ear, making noises, and occasionally I'd tune in and I'm like, oh yeah, that was an interesting, thing that happened. I kind of like the way that they did this or that or whatever. And whenever it's on that level, then it's really kind of an interesting podcast. Oh, damn it. I said podcast. Actual play. It's an actual play. I fucking hate it when people call these podcasts, and this has affected me because of the fact that it would say, welcome to the Critical Role podcast, So anyway, so that's the first level. That's where I'd say I was at, where I remain. I listened to mostly season 1, and there were some entertaining points. And this is when I was very new to the hobby. So I had already started playing, I believe, before I listened to Critical Role. But at the same time, I was learning to DM around the time I was listening to Critical Role. And there were some things that Matthew Mercer did that I thought were pretty neat until I tried them. But yeah, so there was a bit of influence there. I'm not going to lie. I tried to be as honest with y'all as possible. And I know that for a lot of people, they're like, you were influenced by Matt Mercer. You are terrible. So perfectly anticipating that kind of comment. So that was me. So second level of that, I would say is whenever you have very committed listeners, people that really keep track of the story. I didn't really keep track of the story. I didn't really care about the story that much. Me, I was just interested in, how they portrayed their characters in a given moment, not throughout this entire stretch of a thing. I didn't care about their backstories. Why would you give a fuck about their backstories? The interesting thing is how they portray the characters, So whenever they have a moment where Grog has a soldier knocked out and they're trying to hide it from an NPC who's very suspicious that there's weird shit going on, it can be an entertaining moment. They are trained actors. They know how to do improv in a way that is entertaining. And they do this in the context of D&D, which is a game that I really appreciate. I would say that it detracts from the D&D experience. That's just me. But that's kind of how they do it. And it seems to work for a lot of people. But so this second level, I would say, is someone who really does care about the story. And so these are the people that you're going to see, they'll put things about, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And they'll usually try and catch it the night of. I think that there may be 2 times that I've ever tried to catch the stream, and then I just quit basically because it was inconvenient at the moment. I don't typically catch streams unless I really care about what's going to be said, which is one reason why I was kind of sad that I missed RPG Pundit's podcast tonight. Again, Valentine's Day thing. So go check that out if you're interested. It looked like it was going to be spicy, and it looked like it was going to have things that I really wanted to comment on in chat because, Pundit and I disagree on some things. We agree on a lot of things, though. But anyway, so I usually don't catch streams unless there's something being said that I'm really interested in. So I try to catch RPG Pundit. I try to catch... I'm trying to think of people that stream. I'm going to stray from delving into like political streams as far as this list is concerned. I like to listen to Wandering DMs because they have a particular old school bent to them that I enjoy listening to. There are others. I just can't think of them right now on the spot. But that Critical Role doesn't fall into that. I don't care what happens at this moment. I'm not involved in the fandom to that degree. So that's what I would say is probably the second level. Now, the third level is whenever they're engaging in the real community aspects. Now, this is where it starts to get a little weird from my perspective. So this would be the people that are very attached to the hashtag. They're very attached to whatever is going on in the critter community. Anytime that somebody has something negative to say about it, they want to chime in. They're really, defensive or whatever. Okay, like basically the further we get up this list, there's a certain point where I'm kind of worried about them, and then there's like one point where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, that's when the cynical asshole in me comes out, and I'm like, I see what you're doing. But yeah, the top of the list to me is kind of worrisome. So let's go to the fourth one. And again, before I get to the fourth one, I want to reiterate that I do have friends that are Critical Role fans, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with liking Critical Role. Again, I listen to it for roughly about 210 hours total, although probably actively listened to maybe about 5 or 10 of them. I tend to get distracted whenever they're doing their things. Anyway, the fourth level. So the fourth level is whenever you have the people that I'm a little bit cynical of. Now, these are the people that are always making products or content that are centered around the characters of Critical Role. Now, this is a whole different level. Now, this could very well be. It could very well be a desire to just have some artistic expression. So there's nothing wrong with that. Literally, we just finished painting our pet. But our pet is a lot more important than the characters at somebody else's D&D table. Now, admittedly, I haven't been a big... I'm not a big fan art guy, for one thing. Clearly, because my artistic talent is next to nothing. So I'm not criticizing people on the merits of their talent by any means. I think that a lot of the art that comes out of this community is actually pretty neat, so I'm not hating on that. But what I will say is that this group in level 4, I would say they primarily do this for exposure. They do this because they know people will search for these particular characters' names for one reason or another, that there is some kind of attachment to these characters, and that this means that people will see your art or they'll see your whatever. I've even seen people make dice. I recently saw somebody who had a collection of dice that they suggested would be appropriate for this character's use because it had their colors or something. It gets a little weird if we're not looking at it in a more cynical lens, whenever it's just people just really that into these people's characters. So this fourth level, I would say, okay, I see what you're doing. I get it. I mean, there's something to be said about strategy, and that is a strategy is to try to get people to look at your stuff. you know. Everybody that has some kind of exposure whatsoever probably has done or is doing something to this capacity. I mean, you know, sometimes I say things that are a little bit off the wall, but I'm really a chill dude. So, admittedly though, sometimes I just really have like a bad itch to troll. And I really try and avoid doing it because I know that I usually either end up regretting it or I end up possibly hurting somebody's feelings and then regretting that. Well, I mean, that's really the only reason I regret it. Because typically if I just have people getting on to me about something, I'm like, fuck you. I don't care. Unless there's somebody I care about their opinion. But, you know, that isn't always the case. So where was I? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I can see what they're doing. I mean, so you actually have had people make jokes about how I do this with certain things. And really, it's like I would probably talk about 5th edition less if there were less people interested in 5th edition. That's just the truth. Whether it's because, well, actually, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily for the clicks. It's more because I like to spread the word of the old school, basically. And that's not going to happen if nobody looks, really. So, but I also am pretty passionate about wanting to help people make 5th edition better. So what I'm trying to say is that I understand that way of doing things. I get it. So that's the 4th level. Now, those people in the 4th level, regardless of their intent or their motivation specifically, even whether they are there just to do the exposure thing, or they're there because they genuinely just love these characters so much. Oh my God, I love these characters. They are the best characters in existence. There should be a movie. Well, actually, there's going to be an animated series. So these are probably the people that help pay for that. But regardless of that, these people are almost without exception very involved in this Twitter critter community thing. So very active and all that kind of stuff. And they will jump down your fucking throat if you say something negative about anybody in the critter sphere, unless there's some kind of wrong opinion that's being presented. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, but yeah, there's some community policing on appropriate and inappropriate thought patterns, basically. And then the 5th level. Now, this is the level that I'm really genuinely concerned about. And you could say that it's kind of rude of me to think about it in this capacity, but I just don't understand. I really don't understand, because of the fact that literally these are just characters from somebody's D&D game, you know. I just don't get it. So these would be the people that they're not, you know, the ones that are setting off my cynical signal, you know. These are the ones that they're the true believers. They are absolutely dead in love with Matthew Mercer and Mercury and Taliesin Jaffe, I think. You know, Ashley Johnson. See, I know the names. They're true believers. They love them. Fucking love them. They will defend them to the death. You know, if people say bad things about them, they will stand for them hardcore. They will listen to every single episode, and they will talk to people about what's going to happen next, you know. All this kind of stuff. They are just above and beyond in everything. They are constantly just, you know, engaging in this critter fandom, basically. I mean, there's a goddamn Wikipedia page where people, if you look, and I looked at this because I was curious. I was really curious to see just how incredible this drive to explore other people's characters are, which in any other medium, I get it. If these were novels, okay, yeah, you can love the character. Well, I mean, you can love the character anyway. But what I mean is you can really obsess about a character, sure, I guess. I've never really been that obsessive about characters. If it was, you know, a show, like a video, game, or, something where there's some kind of prescripted plot that is designed to, tell a story, with these characters that has like serious character development and all this kind of stuff. And if it wasn't a fucking D&D game, then I would get it. I would totally get it. But it's not. It is somebody's D&D game. And yes, they try and play it as if it is this, sweeping story and all this kind of stuff. But if you listen to what's happening, they're literally just playing a goddamn session of D&D, and they are just really, really drawing things out. That's the big thing. They're really drawing things out. And Matthew Mercer is trying to set up encounters to be incredibly dramatic. This is improv theater is what this is. This is plus die rolls. I'm not saying that they don't actually listen to the die. Although I would definitely not put fudging past Matthew Mercer. I wouldn't put it past him. I'd say he probably has a code of honor. Almost every DM has some kind of code of honor, but some people are a lot more loosey-goosey with it. Actually, I really should take that back. I mean, if you listen to Guy Schlander's talk, he basically says, I ignore the dice all the time. I make up stats with it all the time, or all that kind of stuff. I actually like Guy Schlander's. I just don't listen to him about a lot of things. Anyway, so those people I have some genuine concerns for, because I don't understand how somebody can be that invested with somebody else's D&D game. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I think it's unhealthy. I really do. But I would say that this is probably something that happened because of COVID, but if you've been following, I've been involved in Twitter for a while. This is not new. This has been around for a while. At least a couple years. I mean, Critical Role's been in the hobby about as long as I have. So, actually, yeah, as long as I have, definitely. And they've been crazy about Critical Role and the characters that long. And it's obsessive. And I think it's unhealthy to be this obsessed with people like this, I've been a very strong opponent to this kind of celebrity worship, I mean, I often talk about what Gary Gygax or David Arneson or Tim Kask or, all of these other big people, Tom Moldvay even, what they did with their games. But, that is clearly me making an appeal to ethos. They have some kind of claim of authority, but I don't worship them. If there's something they say or something that they do that I don't agree with, then it's like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to them on that. Clearly I found something that's better. And I don't obsess over everything that they fucking did. I don't go and try and find out as much as I can about Mordenkainen and well, actually, Mordenkainen, from what I understand, was you almost got me there. No, it's just something I just heard on a podcast. They were talking about hirelings and stuff like that, and they were talking about how this was with an interview with Ernie Gygax. So they were talking about how apparently Gary's main character was a fighter, and Mordenkainen was just a hireling that ended up being like this incredibly powerful magic user, basically. So, yeah. Now, like I said, I didn't go out and search for that information. I was just like, wow, they're interviewing, Gary's kid, which means that he's been there since the very beginning. And I'd like to hear kind of what he has to say about stuff. I'm not like seeking out everything about this. This isn't to disparage people that are historians. That's very different. Historians are very important, but yeah, I just don't get the fucking cult worship regarding Critical Role. And hopefully I don't piss off some of my friends who do belong in that fandom. I don't think that they fall. I think that they're level 3s. I think level 3 is a safe zone. I would possibly even say level 4 is a safe zone. But level 5, I mean, come on. Like, seriously. Times are hard right now, because of everything that's going on. Again, I'm not getting into like any kind of political discussion or anything like that. But as far as, just people's ability to go off and socialize and all that kind of stuff, maybe this is like all they got is like the Critical Role fandom. They can just, hashtag critters and, say something about things, and then people respond to them, and then they feel validated and important, and that's cool. Like, that's fine. No judging that. But I don't know. It feels like cult worship in a way, and that's never a good thing. Never a good thing. You should always strive to be a bastion of your own expression and ideals and all those kinds of things. And, you should, certainly find things that appeal to you, but don't fucking obsess over it, I mean, why would you do that to me? She's been outside for like 10 minutes, and stay away. Stay. Shh. Valentine's Day is almost over. Go away. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with appreciating things. But there's something like, I genuinely just think that it's just, this sense of belonging, I think, is what it is. I think that's what it is. And part of the reason I wanted to do this, again, was not to disparage Critical Role fans, because from the way that I framed it, really, like, there's nothing wrong with the majority of them, clearly, because most of them don't get this deep. Whenever you're talking about probably hundreds of thousands of viewers, then you're going to see probably about 1,000 of them that are really loud, that are often just talking about it nonstop. So probably not a whole ton of people. But yeah, so I don't really support the idea that, like, this is just some huge sweeping problem. Critical Role is terrible or anything like that. But I do worry about people that are, like that. So the reason that I bring this up is to perhaps put into perspective my feelings on Critical Role. And also I wanted to, like, let people know I don't hate people that do Critical Role. I don't hate Critical Role itself, obviously, because, like I said, I listened to it occasionally, I did. And I recently tried to listen a little bit more, but, that's just like, really, I'm just listening to people doing neat accents. And that doesn't really do much for me. So, Critical Role is perhaps a force for good in a way, because it brought a lot of people into the hobby that may not have been interested otherwise. I know that for me, I didn't really know what D&D was. I had kind of an inkling of what it might have been like. I thought if I would have paid more attention during the last Starfighter, then I probably would have realized what D&D was, because I'm pretty sure they played D&D in the beginning of the movie. But, I thought it had something to do with action figures, which made me, not action figures, but minis, which made me think that it was just a board game. In fact, I mean, there are Dungeons and Dragons board games, but that's kind of what I thought it was. And, when somebody almost had me play in college, and I was kind of excited about it. I was like, I've always loved the video games and the books. So clearly I should like wherever they came from. Right. But it kind of fell through because I was, an antisocial computer geek that didn't want to, mingle with people I didn't know. So I didn't go. But, so I didn't really know exactly what it was. I thought it was like a board game, which I guess in a way, no, it's not. It's a role-playing game. And Critical Role gives people the opportunity to see what it is. So because of that, I have to give it kudos. I just have to. Now, there are some people that are going to say, well, it gives people false expectations or whatever. Sure. There are some people that are fucking morons that think that anybody, should be able to get a game together and have a DM like Matthew Mercer. Now, first off, I don't want a DM like Matthew Mercer. I just don't. He is a very great improviser. He's very good at improv, basically. He is good at creating lore. Clearly he's done very well in that department. He's good at adjudicating things in interesting ways, but we have extremely fundamental differences on what we want in a game. Most people, even probably the most revered DMs and GMs out there, I wouldn't enjoy their game. And that's just something that happens whenever you've tried a lot of different things and then you learn about what you like and what you don't like. I would never want to play at Matthew Mercer's table, other than just to be able to say that I've done it and to be able to meet him or meet some of the others and just be like, hey, and then I'd probably talk shit to him because we've actually had some very slight spats on Twitter. A spat with Matthew Mercer is a very weird thing. In which case it generally was, I said something about how I didn't like something that he said or did. And then he came and responded and said, basically that he doesn't mean to be like, he didn't mean it in a bad way or something. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, Matthew Mercer, like, I don't know his true feelings about things because he doesn't really seem sincere in a lot of ways. I feel like I'm getting off topic. That's kind of the whole point of this, is to get off topic. Matthew Mercer, he really kind of surrounds himself with people that are very ugly to a lot of people about very specific things. And I can understand that to a degree. But then there's certain situations where it gets kind of like, what? I don't know if you're familiar. I did actually do a stream talking about this, but not too long ago, there's this guy called the Critical Bard who got in some hot water with a lot of people, where he was basically chosen as the Pog champ on Twitch, whatever the fuck that means. And other people were upset because they looked at his tweet history, which immediately, I don't care, basically. If somebody says something bad on Twitter, I'm like, fucking, oh well, maybe just say, I disagree with your assessment, good sir or ma'am, and move on. Maybe have a discussion about it, but don't lose your shit like a fucking baby. But that's what people do, is lose their shit like fucking babies. So, so this guy, Critical Bard, says a lot of things that are, let's just say, prejudicial against particular demographics. And those particular demographics weren't appreciative. And then Matthew Mercer. Oh, well, okay. So let me lay a little bit more context, though, because I do want to be I want to be fair in everything. So if I ever leave something out, then let me know. That's fine. So he did get harassed. Again, I am 100% against any kind of harassment when it comes to people online. Just don't do it. They're like, even if you have, like, let's say you're justified in your disgust or whatever, it's self-destructive. It's fucking strategically moronic, because what then happens is then they can play the victim. That's how this works. That's how it fucking works. Don't harass people. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care how mad you are. I don't care what they did, what they said. If they broke the law, call the police. If they didn't break the law, then just complain about it, I guess. If you feel like you need to. I would be a hypocrite to say I don't complain about things. But don't harass people. It's self-destructive. It doesn't do what you want it to do. So don't do it. So people harassed him. And then Matthew Mercer says, you're going to pick on him, you got to pick on us. Well, not even a week later, we had the thing with Christina Ariel. Same situation now. Admittedly, hers were not as bad. Her particular things that she said, they weren't as bad. They're both very clearly ideological zealots. So if this was Dungeons and Dragons world, they would be clerics of a chaotic goddess or god. And chances are one of them would probably be committing human sacrifices, and the other one would probably be just trying to spread gossip. Not gossip, the gospel. Same first three letters. But yeah, spread the gospel of chaos, more or less. Yeah, that's well. So then, like within a week, he has to say the same thing about that person too. There is the thing to say about the company you keep and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe in using association as a means to disparage people. So that's why I don't just go off and say, Matt Mercer, like you're like the worst person ever because blah, blah, blah. But, there is the association, and there's also a lot of things that he said in the past that have been extremely, I would say, not disrespectful. I mean, yeah, disrespectful, but also just kind of dismissive and rude, cruel even towards people of certain groups. And a lot of these things would be ideological, I would say. And sure, there are bad ideologies, absolutely. And I would say that it's good to not be contributing to those ideologies through, ideas and whatnot. But at the same time, just whenever you are trying to peg people to an ideology that they say, no, I'm not a part of that, then, basically it's, it gets pretty ugly. And that's kind of the kind of stuff that he's been involved with from time to time. Although it's typically not couched in ideology, it's more often couched in moral standards, basically, which, they're often related. So, yeah, there's a lot of, and I mean, he's not the only one in the bunch. I mean, I'm trying to remember this guy's name. Now, it's not Sam Riegel, even though Sam Riegel, yeah, a lot of them do a lot of political tweets, and I don't get into that shit. But that's why I have them muted, just because I don't want to see it, fucking, what's his name though? He has a really great voice, and I cannot think of his fucking name. He plays Vax. Oh well. Anyway, somebody will figure it out. But yeah, there's a lot of serious negativity involved with that stuff, and so he's they're not my favorite. I'm not a fanboy. I appreciate a lot of the work that they have done in the anime industry and the video game industry. And I do appreciate what Critical Role has done for 5th edition, I would say, because ultimately it brings more people to the table, and that is a step in the right direction. I believe there are a lot of people that I have met that they wouldn't have tried D&D without that, very likely, at least not for a long time, if ever. And some people, they love Critical Role, and then they go to an actual D&D table and they see that it's not quite like it. Sometimes people try to make it like Critical Role, but it's, they realize it's not quite like it, and they're like, actually, the hobby's not for me. And, that's fine. But one of the best players I've ever had at my table is somebody who started because he listened to Critical Role, and he's like, this sounds like a lot of fun. And like I said, best guy ever. Like, fantastic player. I miss him desperately. Like, he was just the kind of guy who shows up to almost every session. He gives people rides. He brings snacks. He brings minis. He takes notes. Like, he's always paying attention. He's very clever. He knows the rules, all that kind of stuff. Even though, he was dyslexic, so reading all these rules and learning them all meticulously, it took a lot of energy, So yeah, fantastic guy. Wouldn't have played probably if it weren't for Critical Role. It's not that easy to get people to do something, especially when they've only heard how nerdy shit is. And here you have people that admittedly, they are nerds. I mean, some people try to say, oh, they're actors or whatever. It's like, yeah, but I mean, they're also nerds, Travis Willingham, even though he's clearly like this relatively buff dude, he's still a nerd for the most part. But at the same time, they have appeal. People can watch them play and say, wow, those are actually, very charismatic individuals who are doing very well for themselves, and they're playing this game. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. And if people pass through that threshold and then they start playing, and that's what it takes to get them there, then I am all for it. So I'm not the kind of person that says that Critical Role ruined the industry or anything like that. I mean, the industry's been kind of fucked since third edition, so don't even, you know. Like third edition was kind of the beginning of the end when it comes to a lot of the things that defined what people see as D&D, you know. So I think that's pretty much it. So I don't hate them. I don't hate the Critical Role fandom. I don't love Critical Role. I often get annoyed with the critters because they tend to behave in this very cult-like manner. But you know, in a way, I'm kind of glad they're there. So if I could ask anything of you fine people on this lovely evening, you know, don't hate on them too much. You know, don't be cruel to them. You know, don't put a whole bunch of comments in here about how they're ruining the hobby and, you know, they're all like, insert pejorative, basically. You know, please don't do that. I don't want to do that kind of thing. You know, I recently like did that video where I was kind of making fun of, so Wizards of the Coast, they put out a new video about, how to play D&D, and it featured this young lady who I made fun of her British accent. Now, it's not like I hate British people, or obviously I love British people just as much as anybody else. But I was making fun of how corporations love to put British people in front of you in ads and stuff like that. And so basically everything very corporate-like that Wizards of the Coast does, I was basically highlighting and making fun of. And so that was one of them. But by the end of it, you know, I ended up having some people give me some feedback about how they thought it was kind of out of character, perhaps, is what the way that it was described. And you know, that I kind of realized that it was one of those moments where I had a troll feeling. Like I had that troll feeling, and I went with it, and I had a lot of fun with it. But if she watched it and she took it personal, I would have felt really bad about it. So I took it down, and I decided I'm going to redo it, where it doesn't sound like it's pointed in her direction, because it wasn't meant to be. I don't have a problem with her. She actually seems very lovely as far as like personality wise. I have to clarify because, you know, people might be like, ooh, you know, what does that matter? You know, personality wise, she seems lovely. And she was really excited about her gig, which she should be. I mean, that's a big gig. I've been yammering on for 40 minutes now. So maybe you like this, maybe you don't. I'm wanting to do more of, I would say, high quality stuff. So, but I still want to kind of do this kind of thing too. You know, this is kind of like where my videos started, and it's not for everyone's taste. I completely get that, but it's something that people might be able to get something from, and it's fun for me to do. So I'm going to keep doing that. I guess one final note, you know, the channel has grown a lot. It has grown a lot. Like I put out the 200 sub video, and then that was like a month ago, maybe almost 2 months ago. And this is, you know, my channel's been around for like a year, and it's already doubled, and it's already getting closer to 500. So first off, thank you. Thank you so much. It's really awesome that people are, you know, tuning in and watching the videos and all that kind of stuff. I never thought it would happen. Not in a million years. I was like, well, and I know that I'm talking as if it's like a huge thing when, you know, 400 subs is really not a whole lot, but like it's a lot whenever you had like 10 forever. And I didn't really get into this for subs. Like I know everybody says that, but this is another video topic. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to start that video next. Okay. So, there's going to be two of them, two of these vloggy things, for your, Valentine's Day entertainment. So, I'll catch y'all later. Have an awesome evening.